What if I told you the most dangerous thing you can do every day is something you don't even think about? Sleep. Not scrolling, not stress, not even disease. Sleep. Because when sleep breaks, your brain doesn't just get tired, it starts losing its grip on reality. Dreams begin to feel real, reality begins to feel distant, and somewhere in between, you lose control. In this episode of Rebooting the Brain, we sit down with Dr. Satyanarayana Mysore, Chairman of Pulmonology and the Sleep and Lung Transplant Program at Manipal Hospitals. From insomnia to sleep apnea to rare conditions where the body literally forgets to breathe, we break down how sleep actually works, how dreams are created, how your brain builds entire worlds, and why your phone might be silently destroying your ability to rest. But this isn't just about sleep. This is about breathing, because breathing is the only function in your body that belongs to both worlds, the conscious and the unconscious. And when that balance breaks, everything changes. From real patient stories to extreme sleep disorders to the harsh lessons from COVID when India struggled for every single breath, this episode is a wake-up call about how little we care for sleep, about how much it actually controls us, and about the future of healthcare, where technology might just redefine how we rest, how we breathe, and how we survive. So tonight, before you go to bed, ask yourself, are you in control of your sleep, or is your sleep controlling you? This is Rebooting the Brain, and this episode might just help you sleep a little better.
ജ്ഞാനാനന്ദമയം ദേവം നിർമ്മലസ്ഫടികാകൃതിം ആധാരം സർവവിദ്യാനാം ഹയഗ്രീവ ഉപാസ്മഹേ ഹയഗ്രീവ ഉപാസ്മഹേ.
Rebooting the Brain, powered by PRS Neurosciences. Namaste, everybody. Welcome to next edition of the podcast, Rebooting the Brain. Today, we have another amazing guest with us who's going to talk about a very important topic, sleep. Before that, let's start with the Shanti Mantra. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This shloka has been an inspiration for me right from my childhood. And as the shloka says, from ignorance to enlightenment, from darkness to light, and from death to immortality, you can use this in any aspect of your personal life or professional life or anywhere and get the benefits that you would want. Try it, guys. You'll not regret. So, some housekeeping rules. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Instagram channel, and the Facebook. Learn to, once you watch all the videos, please subscribe, put your comments, hit the like button, and definitely share and hit the bell icon, because more and more people can benefit from the quality content that we are going to share with you people, and we continue to share. And thank you all of you who've been our supporters and well-wishers and people who have been actively commenting and asking for fresh content on the topics of your choice. So today's guest is a good friend of mine from Manipal Hospital, Old Airport Road, Indiranagar, Bangalore, India. A pulmonologist and a somnologist or a sleep medicine expert, Dr. Satyanarayana Mysore. Satya, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sharan.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a privilege to be with you and share my ignorance.
I hope you won't talk in your sleep.
It's very dangerous, I
I
suppose.
agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So my first job is to keep you awake, to make sure you get the right wisdom. So let's hit straight on the point that is hurting everybody today. ನಿದ್ದೆನೇ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಡಾಕ್ಟ್ರೆ. No sleep, no sleep. Young, old, male, female, rural, urban. I don't know how many of you are coming. I see many myself when I talk to people in my own practice of headache and everything else. What am I saying? Is it right, or what do you think as a sir?
It's a humongous problem. And the transition over the last 30, 40 years is huge.
Transition to sleeplessness.
Yes. You would see, let us say, I was a small boy, Tumkur railway station. You would see scorching heat. People have been sleeping
True.
in the platform.
Yes.
No snore.
Correct.
Waking up blissful, searching for their train, waiting for the right departure. Amazing the lifestyle. I think we have to look it from a point of evolution, not the biological evolution, the evolution of industrialization, the evolution of affluence, the evolution of awareness, and also the short term gains which people look through. So you have a burst of light emitting devices, and nobody can claim to be a true sannyasi without the phone. I mean,
I agree.
yeah.
20 minutes later, you're checking in it whether why it's not making any noise.
And if you do happen to enter somebody's friend, close friend house, you would see that at least 4 or 5 of them are sprawled in each corner, and each has a mobile. So take this back, let us go use the time machine, go back to 30, 40 years. Wasn't the case.
Of course.
People would sit together, huddle, talk, and that was a different thing.
Kapemar, laugh, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Socialize.
Sharan, you are a celebrated neurosurgeon. You would agree that till 1930s, people didn't know what the pineal gland was. Pineal
Agreed.
gland
Agreed.
is a tiny pea-shaped gland. Say you take the bindi point, 7 centimeters straight down, you get this gland. So even Williams endocrinology and others said we know that this is a gland in the brain. We don't know what it stands for. So then the question came, is it a kind of a vestigial gland?
like our appendix tara barta.
Tara. So it has been a product of evolution. Did serve some purpose millions of years ago. Maybe now is of no use. Till they cracked the code to say this is generating or producing melatonin. Then people looked at if you check the urine or serum sample of a newborn who sleeps 22 out of 24. If a neonate wakes up, it is only for milk or nappy change.
Correct.
It's only two things.
Very true.
So that melatonin level is high in almost reaching milligrams. But you look at a very elderly person and their melatonin levels are just not detectable. So then they made a connection. Okay, this gland is going to be the master gland for sleep. But maybe that is oversimplification.
Correct.
And we'll discuss melatonin later.
Sure.
But coming back to the point, the transition in the last 40 years, let us say in our own country, is humongous amount of sleeplessness. And there is a section of people, we define medically, Sharan, we say problem in getting into sleep is sleep onset insomnia. You go off to sleep, 1 hour later you wake up and then you are puzzled, you frustrated, tired, and then anxiety builds up.
So you can't fall asleep.
If I don't sleep now, how am I going to work under Dr. Sharan?
Correct.
So that anxiety is there. What do I tell him in the rounds? How do I see all the patients and report back to the boss? So there is an element of anxiety which keeps crawling up, ticking up, and a very linear equation with the clock. So as the time mounts, my anxiety levels would go up if I can't go back to sleep. So that is a sleep maintenance insomnia. Needless to say, it is reached elephantine proportions. But that apart, what leads to that is not all these factors in
Oh,
combination,
oh,
but it is just the fact that we use light emitting devices
correct,
and the light turns off the pineal gland.
correct.
Within the retina, which is the nerve center of the eye, the images are carried in form of electric current and they cross talk with the pineal gland. So it's a very light sensitive gland. So
In the
few,
olden days, there was no artificial light. It was only sunlight and sunset.
yes. And even going back, when there was no electricity, maybe people had a free run of melatonin because you only would have a candle light or a
Correct.
DVTK as they call lamp or a kerosene lamp and things like that. So from that kind of what we would tend to look back and say darkness probably was making them very bright during the daytime because they ended up having quality sleep.
Well said. Very true. Very true. In fact, we also, when we are in a low light area, you tend to brain to shut down. You feel sleepy. You can't function, and it's natural. We can experience it within a couple of maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. Well
Whether
said.
it is the examination hall or wherever,
Correct.
people would just close their eyes and focus if they want to kind of do a task that is highly intellectual. Maybe all this is pointing out, and insomnia is a huge problem.
So young people, Satya, right, don't seem to be having any problem or see, we had nothing when we were kids. Yeah, so ಹೋಗು ಮತ್ ಪೊಲೆ ಇದು ಮಾಡು ಆಟ ಮಾಡು ಏನು homework ಮಾಡು ತರಲೆ ಮಾಡು ಮಲ್ಗು, eat and sleep. That's what we used to do. I know when young people come and tell me, sir, they're not able to sleep, I wonder what is going on. How can you
So,
medicate them
when
so
we
early?
wonder,
Oh,
we should always look with a lateral thinking also, and you need to kind of look beyond the problem.
what do you mean by that?
So, why do we sleep in the night and why are we awake in the day?
That's what we call circadian rhythm, is what we
But
say.
how did that come in?
If you say the light business, no light, pineal gland, I mean,
In
I'm just
fact,
thinking common sense.
the theories,
Uh,
it takes us back to evolution.
hmm,
So, man was a hunter gatherer.
correct.
Maybe there were less vegans, I suppose. Hunter gatherer. And that he could do in abundance during the daytime.
Correct. Because you could see.
Yeah. Nighttime, he becomes hunted. So he would climb up the trees, perch himself on a tree, and kind of get rest and sleep. So this became part of biosynchronization, where night you would anyway feel sleepy. With the daybreak, you are chirpy again and you are looking at your activities of you're looking forward to your day.
Correct.
So when we look from that angle, there are two rhythms that emerge. One is the nature circadian rhythm, dependent upon light, darkness, weather, temperature. The more colder it is an invitation for sleep.
Correct. Slows down.
You are in a very warm temperature, you are very restless,
Oh.
and when you are restless, you can't sleep. So there are number of factors there, and these have all played in creating the circadian rhythm on one side. Next, I feel there is our own sleep rhythm, what we call
Individually.
as individual, we call it as sleep architecture. It's like a building. You have a build of idea of how the building is housed and supported and this thing. So that is the sleep architecture. But then we can throw one more layer. There is a sleep pattern. So every individual has a unique type of sleep. And I feel This is like our thumbprint or fingerprint. It's
Really?
unique to everyone.
Why
I
do you
mean,
say everybody
individuals.
has a night? You sleep at night, you get up in the morning. In spite of that, you're saying this?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. So the reason is in one of the American residency program, there was apparently this particular doctor doing residency. She is or was very kind-hearted soul, very diligent, did her work very well,
Mm,
took care of all the patients. Fantastic. But in during residency, we had to do night duties.
correct.
And I won't dare to comment on the current generation and the current medical residency program. But you and me, we had to do 3
Donkeys.
days, 3 nights in a row. So I am not saying we are great, nor am I looking and saying what people do now is less. But the fact remains,
We have
we
done.
did
We have
that.
done that. Yes.
Now, when this particular resident went for night shifts, she would be totally transformed person, extremely cranky, extremely irritable,
Oh,
so much so that people would say,
two
is
personalities.
this the same person?
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde Tarabat.
There are individuals, they are, oil rig workers or residents or somebody, and they kind of manage with very little sleep. 3 hours they sleep and they come out and say, yeah, next I'm ready for the
Correct.
job.
Correct.
So don't you think that there are individual sleep requirements are different? The pattern of sleep is different.
As you're talking, I'm thinking because I do the same. There's sometimes that I won't say sleep deprived, but I won't get the classical 6 hours. But sometimes I tell everybody I get a power nap, and then I'm fresh. I'm ready to go. So I'm actually concurring with what you're saying.
Coming to power nap, um, it is sleep.
Sorry, I brought that in. I don't know whether
Yeah,
it was a context.
sleep is not unfortunately, akin to banking system. Let us say you and me go off to say Badrinath or some place 2 days, and we have sat up throughout the night through the journey and things like that. We come back and we will say, boss, you go to your home and sleep, I will sleep now, and then we'll catch up with the sleep of 2 days. That doesn't work. So in banking terms, you could say the sleep debt cannot be fulfilled. Lost is lost, but
Oh,
you
that,
can only rejuvenate, relax, and unwind and get the brain the rest it needs and prepare for the next one. So, consequence of what is the sleep lost, I don't think there is much studies on that. But Melbourne, they did an experiment. They took 30, 40 healthy volunteers. They were all very well consented, as you can imagine. And they were left in an apartment, voluntarily told to not to sleep. So it was an imposed insomnia. Now, with that kind of a insomnia, monitoring was there. Now, these were expert drivers when it comes to your automated, you go to the shopping mall and do the
the games, the
games.
video games, driving games, what?
Yeah, simulated driving games.
Racing, what?
So they were true and well experts in doing that. But after 72 hours of sleep deprivation, on the simulation game, they were hitting at every other vehicle which was there or not. So, your learned skills do get compromised when you are not at the best. And that is because you have not slept. So, sleep, Krieger, the compendium of sleep, I would say it's the Bible of sleep medicine, whatever it is. So, they shied away from defining the benefits of sleep. But there is so much of articles on what happens when you don't sleep.
Don't sleep.
So you just have to extrapolate and say,
hopefully the reverse.
yes.
Got it. So that you want to say. No, so you brought up that driving thing, sleep debt was one thing. I was actually going to ask you this question later, but I'm going to bring it now because you brought that thing. This, I thought, came under the category of sleep deprivation because you deprive them with sleep. Whether it's a word that exists in your sleep,
No, it's
dictionary.
sleep deprived.
Ha, ha. Okay. So people like us, when we were on night calls, for example, anesthesia, us, whatever, we are sleep deprived at point of time. There was an article in one of the peer-reviewed journals many years ago, maybe a couple of decades ago, that said that if an anesthesiologist is working continuously for more than 24 hours without sleep, the percentage of mistakes become 50%. And so the reason is, there a difference between the so-called drop in brain functions, as what we are attributing right now, to somebody who's acutely sleep deprived for a night duty person versus a chronic insomnia? Or does the brain adjust better? Because this is very important for our audience to know that they have a choice of not sleeping and still functioning? That's what I mean.
Wonderful point, I would say. Look, people who have acute insomnia, they can actually turn into kind of psychotic reactions. Very, very irritable, very frustrated, and they would demand sleep. Now, a person with chronic insomnia is only parroting out the problem. They say, we want a solution. They're not saying, give me sleep just tonight. But acute insomnia is different. It could be a very strong psychological reason, bereavements, disasters, something that you expected didn't happen, and it is a shocking thing for you. And then you haven't slept, travel,
Yeah,
so
like
many
the
things,
jet lags that we
jet
have.
lag
Yeah.
and other things. In fact, look at this absolutely pleasant young man, patient of mine many years ago. He started developing insomnia. While it was in the acute stages, say less than 4 to 6 weeks. This man, by chance, felt so bored and frustrated, can't sleep. So get up, walk, and this thing. So he came out of his home, and that is in the outskirts of Tamil Nadu, and happened to see a bus that stood for the usual night pickup. He just didn't want to stay in the home. So he got into the bus, realized that he had slept till next day morning, but he was in a different place.
Location.
Then he traveled back very happily that I slept. Now this became a kind of an addiction or a routine. So every night he started, became very friendly with bus drivers. He would pick up such a location
My
where
goodness.
he can travel 20 kilometers this way and then again travel back to the home 20 kilometers. He would time everything. And the bus conductors and drivers were very happy with him. They kind of, understood his problem. He was spending money on bus travel only to sleep. And there are thousands of this
But he has
kind
to
of.
wake up 20 minutes. How did that help?
So you know that if I have to give an interview with Sharan, it's a privilege. So if it is said I have to wake up at 5, there are times you wake up even before your alarm goes off and you snooze it, and then maybe you go back to sleep or you get ready to carry on with the task. So there is a biological clock which we already discussed, and that does a more powerful wake up call.
Got it.
So it is an exam tomorrow.
Agreed. That I agree.
Huh.
I was saying, when he traveled the whole night, he slept. I am okay with that. You are saying he goes 20 kilometers coming to, he has to change the bus. That sleeping, waking, was that good enough for him?
It was good. But then how long will this go on?
Correct.
I mean, family, what about family? So that is when he approached me, and it later got sorted out. But insomnia is one of the most difficult, less rewarding, both for the healthcare professional and for the patient. Both will share the frustration. There are no easy answers. Whereas if you look at other sleep disorders, whether it is obstructive sleep apnea, those ones are easier to manage than per se pure insomnia, whether it is secondary insomnia, which means there are causes that lead to that, or primary, there is absolutely no cause, or we haven't found a cause. So, compared with other sleep disorders, insomnia stands tall in frustrating
Everybody.
everybody.
Got it. So that bus journey took me to what you said, immediately took me to this video that you're going to see just now. It's a clip from the movie Lucia. It's a Kannada movie where this guy is having insomnia, chronic insomnia. He is frustrated. So same like that other patient of yours, he goes out at 2 o'clock in the morning because not able to sleep. Everybody around him is sleeping. He sees one poster of a movie and then goes to do susu. Police catch him and then all this usual stuff. Idu adu yen marte denge ಆಯ್ತು. Then he gets whacked by the police and then he's walking aimlessly there and he sees some two other fellows sitting there. And then he said, I have no sleep. He said, come, I'll get you one tablet for sleep. And they take him inside. And they give him one magic tablet called Lucia. And he puts that in and he sleeps. The moment he sleeps, he starts dreaming and he goes into a different. He is a guy who's struggling to make ends meet. His life is one of the worst that he thinks. He goes into a life, he's a movie star, everybody's attending to him. So he sees a different world. Now he's so excited about that, he wants to sleep to get into that world. So is he staying awake to dream or is he dreaming to as his real life? He is now struggling which is his real life that he likes. So he's struggling in that. So this comes to one more topic. I'm going to put all this four in front of you and you tell me as an expert. Daydreaming versus night dreaming. So before you go into this four, I think you should talk about what are the stages of sleep and then take I leave it to you to take the way you want it.
I think I would start off with the dream.
Okay.
Day and night. The simple question is, why should we dream?
Oh, ask me. There sometimes your dreams are intense.
Why should we dream? Is that, let us say, I would say, Sharan, what did you eat for your breakfast 18 days ago? You would not have an answer.
Not in 3 days ago, I would not answer.
Yeah. So, suppose if I ask you your bank balance and bank details, of course you will give it to me. No, you won't give it to me. But then that information stays with you.
Correct.
So, how is it that we retain certain information? We don't retain a whole lot of information. So, now what happens is during day we have 3000 to 4000 interactions. It need not be people, interactions. You would have seen a snake, Insta on a snake, Insta clip showing a snake and a mongoose, whatever. And then you would also have seen a street fight and things like that. Now, when you go to sleep, your subconscious mind is projecting to the cortical brain, maybe in a 3D or 5D format.
Correct.
And all these things come in and there is information getting jumbled up.
What do you mean by information jumbled up on the?
Is suddenly on your head and something else, that
those
event
okay, got it.
Getting jumbled up. But the basic question that is going on in the brain is this information useful to you or should you hit the delete button? So dream is that beautiful, wonderful thing that deletes the unwanted junk issues. Otherwise, they can go through the excitation neuronal network, leave a signature of what we call as memory, neurological memory. And this is the reason we kind of tell kids, let us say you read about Constitution of India. That is going to be an evaporative aspect unless and until you want to increase the retentive memory. You please do visit within at least 17 hours, 24 to 17 hours. That revision, what does it do? It reinforces the neurological circuit in that particular pattern. So your memory is going to be much more stronger on that. And if you periodically kind of revisit, it becomes your bank balance, bank account details, password. By the way, what is your password? So I
It's a
think
problem, let me be honest, because there's so many passwords. It's so stressful today to there's a other
yes,
comment, I keep different passwords.
the point is dream is very, very essential. Very essential. Otherwise, we would become insane.
Really?
Yes. Now let us go to stages of sleep.
So I there's so many times I get a lot of dreams, Serena. And there's sometimes for some reason I wake up either to go for a boy, to do susu or whatever it is, something, some call comes from hospital, whatever. Then when I close my eyes, I want to get back to the dream. What is the? I was enjoying the dream, and somehow I feel the diabetes, the cutoff with the picture. What do you? What, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I don't know whether
I
it's the
mean,
right place.
isn't it a human tendency that we want to latch on to whatever was the pleasant thing happening? That I am the chief minister of a particular state and I have
You never know
so
you
much
may
of
become.
perk and privileges. I would want that dream to continue, but you can never get back to it so easily. The reason being, dream is independent. So do not attach undue importance to the content of the dream. There are people who would visit, say, spiritual centers, they would visit psychiatrists, or they would feel very guilty, shameful that they dreamt something so aberrant. But then that's not you. You've seen a event, and the 3D or 5D generation of that projection comes in a bizarre way. Now, you asked me on sleep stages, but I started with dream purposefully because dream is a part of the entire sleep stage. So, we have the current classification, we say N1 sleep, which is light sleep. So, I am sleeping.
N1, huh?
Anybody,
Alphabet N.
N for Nigeria, N1. So, I am in a kind of a stage of sleep. However, anybody comes and somebody comes in and says, even strangers, Satya, wake up. I would wake up with some difficulty, but I'm easily arousable. So, that is N1. Stage 2 is I may not respond to stranger's voice. It has to be my kids, my wife, my sister, somebody, known voice which you are tuned to, and you do wake up with difficulty. N3 is coma like sleep, the so called slow wave sleep or deep sleep. The problem is this: common man, they have a right to get kind of confused with this. They may decide N2, N3 sleep is what I want. I want to hit the bed, sleep like a log, wake up fully fresh. But N3 sleep is again age dependent because what happens in N3 sleep is that your growth hormone is released in spurts.
Correct.
So, younger kids, neonates, adolescents, till growing years, I would say, N3 sleep predominates.
Adhika is so difficult to wake them up.
Exactly. So, that is the point where growth hormone is being released in spurt and they grow.
But what is the connection to
However,
sleep?
if you look at a 90-year-old man, why should he have N3 sleep?
I don't know. You should tell me.
They shouldn't because you don't need growth hormone when you
Oh,
are
you're
90.
saying N3 is required for growth hormones. Oh, got it. Got it.
So, the with the aging process, your N3 sleep percentage comes down. At birth, if it was 25% of the total sleep, when you are hitting 60, 70, 80, the N3 sleep itself has reached less than 5%. So, the number of hours an elderly person will sleep is actually less because that is the biology, that is the evolution, and that is the rule. Now, the problem happens one is social media, second, messaging from various things, and everybody has a so called medical advisory friend. You give advice on various things. So somebody will say, 7 hours of sleep is very essential, boss. I did listen to this interview. If you don't sleep for 7 hours, you will end up with a heart attack. You are adding a complexity of anxiety into the whole picture. And you are missetting the expectation mismatch. Now, what happens is 7 hours of sleep is for, say, 18 to 50 years of age. That is where average is 7 hours. So, when we say 7 hours average, it means you could do very well with 5, I could do very well with 6, because that's how you calculate the mean, median, mode, average. So, that again we go back to the whole thing. Sleep is a unique fingerprint. It's very individualized. I may be happy with 5 hours sleep. You may be happy with 7 or 8 hours sleep. So it's very different.
What do you mean by you may be happy, I may be happy? How do I know I'm happy? Because now all this information is.
So
What is a good sleep? So let me reword the question back to you.
So the minute you wake up, you are feeling that I have to get ready for the day. I want to jump out of the bed. And then all the thoughts come through what you had planned for the day, and you're getting ready in tackling that. You are humming a tune. You are having a leisurely shower.
Correct.
So that is, you feel that the sleep was refreshing. That is a good night's sleep.
Got it. Got it. Can you get hours is not important, guys. You should feel good when you wake up.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So the minute you wake up, you are having a refreshed feeling. The opposite is there. You wake up and then you curse, why did the sun come up so early? I mean, why do we have this alarm clock?
Correct.
Can I reach for the covers again?
Correct.
I mean,
and
the justification starts in the mind. It becomes a courtroom. I will not care. Sharan had called me for a talk, interview, but I'll go half an hour late. Doesn't matter. Doesn't hurt him, doesn't hurt me. Let me, at least that half an hour I'll feel fresh. Basically, it is not the half an hour you are fighting for. You are actually making it very obvious that the so-called 6 hours you spent on the bed or in sleep has not refreshed you at all. When I say hours in the bed, sleep efficiency is calculated by the number of hours you spend in the bedroom on the bed versus the actual amount of hours you actually slept. So, I go into the bedroom, I am on the bed, I am tossing and turning. I think there was a song also, tossing and turning. So, and you have spent 8 hours, but your total duration of sleep has only been 4 hours. Now, your sleep efficiency is only 50%. I go get into the bed, I sleep, I wake up after 5 hours. It's 100% efficiency, sleep efficiency. So, these are some of the parameters.
Excellent. So you said N1, N2, N3.
N3, then dream.
Oh, the dream is what, N4, huh?
No, it is, there is only N1, N2, N3. Then the dream sleep, or what we call medically as REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. And interesting, while the sleep medicine was being kind of understood, it was more of psychiatrists who were in the forefront. And they would make the volunteers sleep and observe them. There is no twitching, kicking or anything, but the eyeballs would rapidly move. And the individuals would wake up and say, I dreamt, that's why I woke up. So then they kind of made it put 2 and 2 together. They said, when you dream, your eyeball moves. Interestingly, and thankfully, we should pray that nothing else moves when we dream. The reason being is purely medical. When you dream, let us say you have seen Durandar 2, you want to bash the villain. In your mind, you are sure that you have smashed the villain so well. And if your muscles don't get paralyzed, we call it as atonia, REM atonia. You would end up hitting a wall or bed partner or anything. So
It has
that
happened,
is
huh?
the, yes, it has happened. This is the magnanimity of whether you call God, nature, or whatever. Everything is precisely, and the engineering in the body is state of art, and it gets improved or deteriorated based on the lifestyle choices we make and the years we spend on the planet. So I had this in a different country where I was practicing. In India, a patient comes to you. Before telling the problem, they would want to take time to tell who they are, how many people do they know, and in what way they are powerful and things like that. Maybe that is an Indianness. But in this particular abroad country where I was practicing, this man came, never told me what he is in reality, and he had this problem. You have the knuckles here, or the bony points, elbow, or we call it as malleolus. So these are bony points. During sleep, we protect it and we sleep. Whenever he had violent dreams, he would end up punching the wall, the cot, his wife, and then he had number of injuries. One day he suddenly presumed he is heading for a swim and crashed directly into the ground.
Sure, Rama.
So then I actually kind of did a sleep. I had an idea of what this is. This is failure of voluntary muscles in the body, or what medically we call skeletal muscles, to lose tone, and then you don't enact your dream.
Oh, interesting.
So that if this failure of paralysis sets in, we call it as REM behavior disorder, RBD. It's not a condition I would wish anybody to have, not because of the injury, but this is a harbinger towards later stages, Parkinson's. So this man later, I realized that was a very, very high ranking, official of that particular country, the real top icons. And he said, if I have this medical condition, I will be off from work. That is something that we would wish to see in this country. But then,
And he accepted that.
yeah, and you diagnosed REM behavior disorder. Good. No, your job doesn't end there.
Begins there, actually.
You have discovered a horrible problem. So you have to empathize with the patient. You have to give solutions. So we use medications. We use personal protective devices, extra pair of mattress on the floor. For the kids, because they scratch, you put those gloves, puffed up gloves, those kind of things around your bony points. And then there is melatonin therapeutically used, clonazepam, doxepin, so many, and many medications available. But the real thing is, a percentage of these patients will eventually end up having one of the neurodegenerative diseases. And what we do.
But you're saying a child also can do. So child also can have a neurodegenerative earlier? Is that what you're trying to say?
No.
No.
The adults.
Adults. Huh.
Adults. So we do check for the sense of smell. And if that gets lost, it is again going to forecast and forewarn you that there is going to be.
We have found that in Parkinson's very
Exactly.
early. Yes.
I think in this context, I will refresh your memory with what I said. During sleep, it's only the eyeball that should move back and forth, to and fro, nothing else.
Amazing. I did not know about this atonia part of it, because sometimes some of your teams were like so active doing 100 things that not injured me, but
I won't believe it, because I think, in my opinion, you are a very celebrated neurosurgeon. You brought out those, I was very interested. The human body, paradox is, the finest movement, the discrimination, or what we can, how can we make out two similar points, how apart they are. So these fine discrimination. So the fingers and others get a larger land BDA site in the brain. Whereas the bigger ones, which do all the menial job, hard work, leg or feet, they get very less. So why am I telling this? In the context of you had perfected this Japanese technology, technique, neurosurgical thing, you would give a violin to a guy and then you would know where exactly, which is the functional area for you to, maybe you will have to give me a chessboard or make me watch a cricket match.
Perfect. So so if this atonia does not happen, like you said, is this something that the patient has to live with, or is it something it is self-limiting, or is it something that can be changed with medications?
What we don't want, number one, is it should not be a progressive one.
Okay.
Second, don't want
Mm.
is that it should not 2 years later end up as a neurodegenerative disease. This is my first priority for my patients' well-being. I don't want too many complications. Never jump into pharmacological therapy upfront. Try to look at mechanical things to help them out. And you need to also not just worry about the patient. You should offer psychological counseling, help to the family also. They suffer. So, and then they are the ones who can kind of watch him or watch her during sleep. So they will have sleep deprivation. The very anxiety that what this person
Correct,
can
correct.
do.
Or when he'll hit me again.
Exactly. So there are number of things. And there was this, again, abroad, won't name the country. And there was this lady who used to see me. And I used to fly from one city to the other city. And in that particular place, she came. And she had this extremely nasty dreams. Dreams where mutilating things have been done. Uh, she's been subjected to sexual abuse, all these things in her dream.
Understood, understood.
But when you take a detailed history, nothing is coming through. She's got a steady job, she's got a supportive partner, her social this thing life is good. She has got some recreational
So you couldn't find
sports.
any triggers or whatever?
Nothing at
Nothing.
all. Then over the second sitting, I thought, do I accept that I don't know the answer? Should I strive to get? And in the doctor-patient interview, if you have empathy, doctor should train himself to ask specific questions, make it very pleasant for the patient. You can't be asking a huge questionnaire, lengthy interrogation.
With no
So
empathy.
So, or just with the thing that I will get the right
Correct,
diagnosis.
correct.
So I went on to ask about her parents. Then I realized that her biological mother kind of married a immigrant from another country.
Second marriage.
Second marriage, and that didn't work out. There was a lot of abuse.
Abuse of the mother.
Mother. So that was stored in her brain. And these patients.
Like a childhood trauma.
Exactly. And she never would not want to discuss that.
My goodness.
I mean, he's such a bad guy. I will not even discuss that episode.
They don't want
you
to.
Banish.
They have numbed it in their mind.
Exactly. You think that you have taken those bad memories, put it in a coffin, nail it, and you don't want to ever revisit. But the problem is that information has to get either stored or deleted. So it will come and revisit every single night as dreams.
I agree with you. Crazy.
So then we did what we call as dream imagery remapping.
Whoa.
So you basically work with, I am a sleep physician, I am a pulmonologist, interventional pulmonology, all that. But if there is one thing I have realized, you cannot provide solution in sleep medicine without involvement of a team.
Correct.
It has to be a very good psychiatrist, a psychologist who is used to sleep disorders, and a neurologist, because you may have picked up a condition called nocturnal frontal lobe epilepsy and you have not understood what it is. So you need to work closely with a team, and that is where you can get the best for your patient.
Amazing. So you heard on one side he said, if you sleep well, you get up refreshed. Other side he used the word sleep medicine. That means you're saying sleep is medicine. And if you don't sleep, you have to come to a sleep medicine specialist.
When we say sleep medicine, we say the art and science. I add the art part of it. It is the science of sleep, insomnia, movement disorders during sleep, all of those things.
So now you have said about the fact that, that mental trauma that she had impacted her dreams and had a big issue impact on everything else. It reminds me of that movie Inception, where, here for her, unconsciously, her dreams got constructed by the childhood trauma that she had. In that scene that we just watched, there he's actually, intentionally fixing the dream of that person so that it is better. And then,
So
so
you manipulate the
is
theme
that a
of
part
the
of dream
imagery
imagery?
remapping. You
Remapping,
kind
sorry.
of give suggestions to rebuild the dream and create a happy ending in the dream so that you don't feel distressed. And I think the most important part is to sit with the patient and basically explain what is dream. There is no need for remorse, guilt, apprehension, anxiety about what you dreamt or what the content of the dream and things like that. It's an expression for you to feel liberated.
That's the right word
So,
you used, liberated. I think you're tied up in this chain like this.
exactly, I look like a sannyasi, spiritual
You look
leader.
like it.
Yeah.
She,
So,
and then
but the point is that we should look at very adequate, extremely simple words. And what do I notice in the current medical era? We should not use medical words when we communicate with the patient. Keep it very simple, create an example, make them understand in a simple way without either information overload. And that is why that is where you invite too many questions also. It's just an expression that, Doc, I haven't understood you. So keep it very, very simple.
no, this dream remapping imagery, na? That's what you said.
Yes.
It's actually got me really thinking because it is such a subjective thing that you do. It's not like a formatted 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. It has to you have to customize it to every patient depending on the input that you
Exactly.
get. So it really needs a lot of skill. Who does this? Is it the psychologist who
It
does it?
is psychologist.
Oh, she has her
Abroad,
hands full.
there
Huh?
is
Whoa.
sleep psychology
So course?
courses. Yes.
Amazing. But it's
And they do
really an
train
effort, huh?
and they are very good
Whoa.
in. We do sleep restriction therapy. Maybe I will get away doing sleep restriction therapy, but for imagery remapping, you do need a psychologist, full stop. So, see, sleep restriction is, let us unwind, go back to the sleep efficiency. So, there are a few things called as uh, tips for good night sleep, or we can say sleep hygiene.
Sleep hygiene.
So, it is the like the beginning of this conversation, you said housekeeping tips. So, here also, before we sleep, maybe we should treat it like a war or like a ritual. So, maybe a couple of hours before your sleep time, kind of move away from light emitting devices, whether it is an iPad, a phone, or whatever tablet device, move away from that. Do not expose yourself to extremely bright light, because bright light, anything of a wavelength of 400 nanometers, is going to stimulate your pineal gland and shut off the natural melatonin.
So TV is also a part of that.
Absolutely, yes. So, and never carry the television into the bedroom. Apart from these things, the last 1 hour before sleep, if you are used to having shower, Bangalore, we do always have water shortage. But if you are, you can afford, uh, better have a shower. Or if you can't, take some neutral oil, like an olive oil, and massage your calf muscles. By doing that, you are building up lactic acid in that. Now, that is going to be a neuronal thing to say you are tired and exhausted. The sleep centers to get activated. So, you have in the brain, for the audience, I would like to say there is sleep promoting centers and there is sleep kind of opposing centers. And in between them is one hormone, orexin, hypocretin, which toggles to regulate like a switch. Orexin levels are less, you may find the person is what we call in medical as narcolepsy.
You can measure these levels, huh? Orexin, no?
Experimentally, yes.
Okay.
Routinely,
Not
no.
routine, no. No, because you said that level, so I was just checking. God, we'll go to narcolepsy a little later. Before that, I won't ask you a couple of other. So see now you told me that to sleep hygiene. I think we should spend a little bit of time on this. I was looking at my own evening. So what I do is after I tend to have we tend to have an early dinner before 8 o'clock,
Which
let's
is
say,
good.
which is 7 to 8. Then I have an adda upstairs where I have a relaxing chair. But I have a TV. So I'm now thinking. So normally I relax myself there on the chair, the TV is on, sometimes music, sometimes something else, and many times I've fallen asleep. And then, I wake up and then I feel nice and relaxed, after an hour or something. Then I go down and go to sleep. Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
Bad idea.
Bad idea.
Yes.
Ooh la la. Why is that?
So, let us say,
I don't want to fall asleep. I just fall asleep.
when I heard your lifestyle, you seem very affluent. Anyway, I can't afford to do that. But then the reality is, I go to hospital at 7, I come back at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the night, have to attend to the matters at home, and then dinner, which is just a semblance of dinner. And then, the current medical practices, your patients will reach out with their reports, or, can you do this, do that, can I come and see you? So there's huge barrage of messages that will come through, you attend to that. And when you actually go to kind of sleep, you need to create a little ground between all activities, shut it down, sit in indirect light, read a book, listen to music. Do not carry all your worries into the bedroom, number one. Second, if you are entering bedroom, it should be only with the purpose of getting into sleep. Ensure that the temperature in the bedroom is slightly colder, 1 or 2 degree colder than what the living room was. So this is all a kind of a ritualistic thing, and if you are into this habit, it is going to ensure a good night's sleep. Now, coming back to your point, let us say I come back from work at 7:30. I ease into a chair and I sleep off. Wake up at 12:30. Then rummage myself in the kitchen, try to look for something to eat.
No, I don't do that.
No, I'm just
You're
saying, giving you a hypothetical example. And then I try to sleep. In the longer term, this ability to get into sleep later night will not happen. There will be inability to sleep, and we call this as advanced sleep phase syndrome. So 5:30 you come from office, you you have no energy left for anything, you lie down, you sleep for 4 hours straight, you wake up.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
After that they
I got
can't
it. No,
sleep.
no. So what I'm saying is, like you said, I need to wind down because of whatever I had a stressful day. So I feel that going there, just putting on something, it's a little cooler there. I wind down. It's, let's say, half an hour, 45 minutes is normally this one I have. That's when I feel my body is down, like really I've slowed. Then I get into bed. I go down. That's not my bed. It's just my chair. I then go down. And truthfully, touch wood, I have no problem with sleep. I hit my bed. I have one very nice, one beautiful Narayana mantra, which we got from Sri Ravi Shankar Ashram many years ago when we did this one with them. And we play that to the extent, this must be 15, 18 years now, to the extent that now I have it on my phone. Before it used to work on a CD. So now I used to go for conferences or in somewhere outside when I don't have the CD with me. I would not fall asleep until this song starts. So I would actually sing this song in my head. And by the time 2 minutes, Satya, I am under. Even today, I put that song on, I am under. I have no problem in falling asleep. Even if I get couple of calls on in the night for any emergency, I look at the scan. I tell everybody, I can look at the scan with one eye. I don't need to have to both eyes. Go back again. In fact, when my call comes and I wake up, my wife doesn't sleep back. I go to sleep immediately. 5:30, I'm up, fresh and ready to go. So that's how this one is. So I'm just trying to analyze whether I can do something differently or better or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever works for you. But then the reason we are discussing this entire thing, two things. One is there are people who come home, they just can't get into sleep at all, and as the clock ticks, they sleep at say 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock
AM.
and wake up at 7 or 8, and that we call it as delayed sleep phase syndrome. So neither advanced nor delayed are good. They are problems with the circadian rhythm, circadian sleep disorders, as we call it. The other point is that very important, that don't get into the bedroom if you are not feeling sleepy. Because let us say you feel sleepy, your eyelids are feeling droopy, and you get into bed, you are consolidating your sleep. Between your N1, N2, N3 dream sleep, there is a small wake up, which may recap, we may not recap next day. Again, this N2, N3 dream will go on. So you have 3 bouts of dream sleep.
In one night.
In one night.
Or one sleep, whatever you call it.
One night of sleep, or if it is a shift worker, it is day is night for him or her. Suppose you haven't dreamt.
Is it good or is it bad?
It's bad because next day you are hit with what we call as rebound REM.
Oh, next night.
Day or night.
Oh,
you sitting and you ask me about daydream versus night dream. So who is a daydreamer? Is a person who's probably not got the full quota of REM, which is 20% of the entire sleep. And in the afternoon, he or she wants to rest on a lawn chair. They would get bizarre dreams. Yes.
Really?
That is called REM rebound. There is also REM intrusions into sleep.
Good grief. Boss, it's too complicated, boss. I should not have spoken this at all with you. I was sleeping happily. Now you are saying... Anyway, I'm just joking. It's amazing how much sleep medicine is,
Yeah, it is a
I'm so glad that we
pure
took
science.
this up. Wow, but I didn't know it was so deep.
Practicing
Whoa.
is difficult.
One hell of a... It's more than a full-time this one for your whole team, Alva, because it's not like a black and white, like a blood pressure or a sugar or something like that you can just manage. Whoa, so that's what you're saying. REM rebound. So you're saying one, sleep is, dreams are good. And if you don't dream, you're bound to dream. So you have no escape from that whole process.
And you have no control over
You have
dreams.
no control on the dreams.
Don't try to control the dream. Rather, maybe this is all a universal message. You watch Kung Fu Panda. Time and again, there is a universal message that comes through. One of the thing, probably common sense. If you do wish good for everyone, you have a very pleasant things about everything, and you don't complicate. Nature situation can get complicated without our fault. But if you don't voluntarily complicate, you don't carry thoughts, negative thoughts, your dreams are going to be good. Even though bad dream again doesn't mean you didn't do this. But there are ways to improve that and improve the quality of sleep and quality of life.
You're actually
So,
helping
in
people.
between, if I see 10 patients with pulmonology, I see one patient with sleep disorder. Then again, I will see two patients who are likely for interventional pulmonology. Then I again may end up seeing sleep. So, there is kind of mix and match there, and it is always good. So, in insomnia, a good sleep psychologist can do what is called as sleep restriction. Ask you to defer the entire night sleep and go for very little sleep in the early part of the day and keep moving that. 7 to 9 was the today's sleep. Tomorrow it could be 9 to 11. And so you bring it full circle and ensure that the original circadian rhythm is brought through. It's very difficult. But I do know some of the psychologists abroad who are really, they stand there, the level of work they do. And I'm sure in India, with the time, we will have this specialty coming through.
You got more questions, thoughts in my mind. It's amazing. I'm so happy that we started this. So, just to tell our people that one is you don't go to bed until you're sleepy.
Hmm.
Number two is cut off all the devices,
Yes.
wind down. And thirdly is, don't have, traumatic experiences, at least closer to sleep, so that your dreams are much more not traumatic or whatever it is, because dream is essential. But I push back on behalf of the audience. Doctor, idella very easy, doctor. You don't know how much stress I have, business, this is happening, that's happening. My life goes on till 11 o'clock, otherwise I can't survive. You know what I mean? There are people who are convinced, justified, they'll try to convince you also. How do you, what advice? Because at the end of the day, everybody needs sleep.
Anything that is good never comes so easily, number one.
I agree.
You look at our Puranas or Vedas,
Mm,
to get a glimpse of the Supreme Self, people meditated for years.
correct.
So it's not like you go, you pay money and you have a darshan and you come out. So you had to sacrifice so many things. So similarly, any good thing, why should we restrict at sleep alone? Various health aspects will be dictated by what is the amount of hard work you put in.
And as much as how much of sleep you put in, the
For
health wise, alwa.
example, some of the chronic lung diseases, you need excellent pulmonary rehabilitation. Take the wonderful neuro rehab that you have. It is not some magic wand that somebody has, or a
No,
magic
yes,
crystal
yes.
ball. Every
Yeah,
day
day in, day out for months
there will
together.
be therapists who will go through, let us say, difficult time. Patients will have to kind of bear pain while their stiffened muscles are being stretched. You are helping them to
Cognitive,
balance,
cognition,
yeah,
everything, speech.
endurance. So nothing comes easy, whichever is good.
Well said, well said. I think you put it very succinctly.
Yesterday I didn't get the ticket for RCB. It's anything that is good, you don't get it so easily.
If Satya didn't get ticket, then who can get ticket is the question. We have to investigate. India wants to know why Satya didn't get the ticket. Anyway, they played well. Looks like 200 has become par for the course right now. It's crazy what they were playing. Anyway, so we 1/3 of our life we sleep. We spend in sleep. That's what is the statistics that we say. So now I'm going to change the gears slightly. The next point you said, I said I'll come back to you before I go there, is narcolepsy. You mentioned the word narcolepsy. So, what is narcolepsy? You gave me a crazy story that day. So, I think you should.
So look, everybody would have seen those young Tibetan monk kid sitting in a class, irresistible, falling asleep, getting up, waking up, and things like that. Again, setting is not India, abroad country. I was practicing there, and there was this very young girl who was gainfully employed, but she had to drive some 40 kilometer, 60 kilometer away. from one town to another, but this crisscross driving is through the bush or
Forest
wood
or what?
forest area. So she didn't know that she had narcolepsy. So she would be driving and she will have irresistible urge to
What is
sleep.
narcolepsy in English?
Is where there is excessive of sleepiness. It is not just daytime sleepiness. Excessive sleepiness where your wake up centers don't work in the way they are expected to. There is a failure of wake up mechanism. Again, if we go back to millions of years ago, Kumbhakarna was cursed. But what he actually had was
Narcolepsy.
a combination of Pickwickian syndrome with narcolepsy.
Narcolepsy.
So there is unwelcomed intrusions of sleep, and each sleep starts with, of course, when you do a polysomnography, you realize we call it as SORAM, which is sleep onset REM waves. So every bit of unwelcomed sleep is starting with a dream.
Ooh, Rama.
The dream is irrelevant to those patients. So you are basically giving drugs which will kind of challenge the dopamine centers, the orexins of the universe. You are using methylphenidate, modafinil, gamma benzohexaoic acid, so many other medications to keep the person awake. So this girl in the forest, she knows that she can't drive next because she is feeling asleep. So she would park the vehicle, walk half a kilometer, not sleep near the car because she's a lady and she has to watch out for her safety. She would climb a tree, always carry a haversack, attach it between the two trees,
Oh,
and
like this
sleep
one.
off.
Hammock.
And sleep off for a couple of hours, wake up and drive. And then it was causing a problem with her partner. Partner said, "You are indifferent. Whenever I come, you are sleeping." Since it is a Western country, nobody expects either of them to cook or clean. But then you are not even available to talk, or you're always in yoga nidra. So there was problems on the domestic front as well. At workplace, there were problems. Till I said, let us do workup for narcolepsy. And that got kind of sorted out. So, yes, sleep disorders are far too many.
I'm amazed at what you're doing. I knew sleep had complexities, but I really did not know the depth to which, the whole science has evolved to make this happen. So from narcolepsy, we'll go from the brain aspect, we'll go to an aspect called sleep apnea. Before we go to sleep apnea, we have to talk about gorke or snoring. Is snoring good or is snoring bad?
Excellent question again. But snoring, again, historical background, 40, 50 years ago, the head person in the village would have a fantastic lunch.
Correct. High
And
carbohydrate.
there is a couch, and he would rest and snore while the humble villagers who have come to meet him, they would wait till he wakes up. And people would say, "Hey, he's snoring, man. Yen guru, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ನಿದ್ದೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ." It's exactly oppositely
Exactly.
wrong. So snore, you contrast that with, again, I would think of Bangalore or Tumkur railway station. Scorching heat. The guy is shirtless and is lying down on the footpath.
With the hand as a pillow, probably.
Yeah. And not a single decibel of snore. So that is actually better sleep compared to snore. And I'll explain why. The upper airway, when we say at the bend of the neck, has within the walls, as I told, I am always amazed by God's engineering. There is this thing called mechanoreceptors. So there are receptors which will kind of give sensation to the brain that the airway is open, it is compromising, it is closing down. However, what happens during sleep in individuals who are predominantly obese can happen in extremely thin asthenic individuals also, but percentage wise more in obese people, that the mechanoreceptors may fail, or proportional to the obesity and the truncal obesity, the airway starts becoming narrow. When it becomes so much narrow that it turns into a flute, you have to get the music out, and that music is the snore. So, in simple words, Sharan, what is snore? Snore is an indication that the airway has become extremely narrow. Now, after a while, the airway actually completely closes off.
Hmm.
If you block the flute, how
No
will
sound.
you get the sound?
No sound.
So, there may not even be snore when there is apnea. So, that is what we call as sleep apnea.
Apnea
Number
means
of
literally no breathing for.
no breathing, and it can go on for minutes, seconds, and things like that. So these episodes can be so much, they can be anything between 0 to 5 is normal for everyone.
0 to 5, Indra?
0 to 5 times
In
I
the
may close my airway
in one night sleep.
in 1 hour of sleep.
1 hour of sleep. Okay.
And it's not 1 hour of night or day, it's 1 hour of
sleep.
actual sleep. Suppose somebody is closing 80 times, 90 times.
80.
80. The highest I have seen is 140 in
What?
another country.
In 1 hour.
1 hour. So that indicates that during that amount of time that the airway closed, virtually there is no oxygen getting into your lung. So the lung will wake up the brain. You have the flight or fear hormones jutting into. Apart from that, you have corticotropin releasing hormone, you have thyroid releasing hormones. You are predisposing that person to develop cardiac rhythm abnormalities. You are pushing them to develop obesity because your ghrelin and leptin levels change. You are insulin resistant. So, what we say is one thing leads to another. If you are obese, it leads to sleep apnea. Sleep apnea leads to obesity in turn. So, it's a very vicious cycle.
Got it.
Unfortunately, not just limited to only obese, but percentage among thin people is less.
Before we go further on the snoring and sleep apnea, sleep crying, the children.
The problems during sleep, or we say unusual manifestations during sleep, we call them by medical word parasomnias. And when we say parasomnias, we again divide it whether did this happen during dream sleep or did it happen during non-dream sleep. The REM behavior disorder is one thing that happens during the dream sleep. There are sleep terrors, sleep paralysis, nightmares, those things that happen during non-REM sleep. So, one of the simple things sleep terror is the usually seen in infants, kid wakes up crying inconsolably, parents are distressed, they try to pacify. Pacifying is going to kind of move the kid from whatever non-REM sleep into wakefulness, which is not pleasant. Then the crying can actually reach the zenith. So it is very important that you consult a sleep physician.
How old a child can have this? Youngest, whatever.
4 to 4 years and above, they can have. 2 years also they can have. But usually it is 7 to 8 years that this becomes a noticeable problem. The reassuring part is this is a self-limiting problem. Who needs treatment? Not the kid. It is the parents.
Why do you say that?
We have to counsel the parents and say when they are crying inconsolably, please bear the discomfort and the feeling you get in your heart. Allow them to gradually come back to their own, and they will just go back to sleep. Now, you intervene because of love. It actually is kind of working against.
And you made a statement when we were speaking offline on this topic. Is culturally it can change from country to country, and yet I thought that was a very powerful statement you made. Can you
Exactly.
clarify on that?
So culturally, kids when they are very young only, they kind of get to sleep separately in the Western world. In India, it would be very much 18, 19-year grown up also will prefer to sleep with parents, or parents want to have the kid around and things like that. So those kind of behaviors also influence, because kid is sleeping independently and you have a sleep terror, it will pass off without interfering.
Nobody will know because they are sleeping.
Nobody will know.
Got it.
So there can be bruxism.
Correct.
The person may not know bruxism is grinding of the teeth.
Oh, talkachadu.
So now that can keep increasing. It will depend upon the stress in the day, translate to more bruxism or teeth grinding. And they have this in the teeth, you have the Burj Khalifa on four side, every molar. The Burj gets grinded. So in a later this thing, you are becoming the regular visitor for a dentist. And it does put a lot of strain on the jaw muscles. So they can have fatigue in the masseter muscle and other things. So for all this, the social cultural aspect is important, because parents get to know, they alert, and they can get this addressed.
Or the husband may start blaming the wife. Wife may start
Blaming and everything
you need by
is
the because of this
uh,
happened and child is crying and whatever it is. So you have to be very careful. So again, your team comes into play. The psychologist plays a big role. Find out what is going on,
exactly.
where
So
the
you
truth
need a
lies.
sleep study to prove that you are not missing on something that is medically treatable, and that you are centering on it's a night terror but nothing else.
Then it's more reassuring, but still has to be dealt with.
Mm.
Small side thing I want to ask you is what about the sleepwalking?
Oh,
Sleepwalking.
so again, I had this lady who came to me with sleepwalking. I mean, everybody in the family, partner, neighbor, everybody had corroborated.
Mm.
She would open the door and go off for a walk.
Mm.
And after a while, either she will crumble to the ground, open ground, and or wake up and come back to the home, not knowing why she was in the compound or balcony, whatever. So, this is a type of parasomnia. Absolutely nothing to worry. But then you need a proper sleep study, that is a level 1 sleep study with a video camera, to see when the person actually wakes up, during which part of sleep is the person waking up, and things like that.
Is
Make
it
sure
waking up or walking in the sleep?
they don't actually, when I say wake up, it's not the brain that is waking up.
Oh, they physically.
Physically, they wake up and walk.
Mm.
So, again, management has to be elegant and simple. So, for some of the patients, I have said the bed partner to lock the door and put the key somewhere where he or she doesn't share with the partner, and then use kind of soft padded floor, wall, and don't keep dangerous things. And there are instances, one instance in one particular country, where the two people voluntarily went to live in one house, and the lady said, I was sexually violated,
Mm.
and the person said, this is sexomnia, so I
Mm.
did it in my sleep.
Yo.
So so there are a number of crazy sleep parasomnias that keep emerging and getting recognized. But then, fortunately, in our country, we may have gone into nuclear family mode, but you will never be free of relatives and people who come and visit you. It's always a crowded platform in our country. That is where I said cultural influences do matter. Some of the parasomnias are very less.
Interesting. So before we go back to snoring, I want to tell our viewers that breathing, usaradu, is the only vital function where is both automatic and in our control. You can't control your heartbeat, you can't control your digestion, you can't control your hormones being released, only the breath. When you're not paying attention, your body continues to breathe. But you can pay attention, stop your breath, take a deep breath, double control, both the upstairs and downstairs control. What that's the science that what pranayama also is has been looking at. So what's your take on this? And let's
So there
start.
are two things. We are lucky that breathing is voluntary,
Why do you say lucky?
or lucky that it is involuntary.
Oh, yeah.
It is partly voluntary or completely involuntary during sleep, because you are putting the breathing centers on a autopilot mode. Think of an aircraft, you put it on autopilot, it is flying on itself. So that is very, very important not to kind of have sleep apnea, or if you have it, addressed so that you can breathe better and sleep better thereafter. And the third part is a curse which nobody should ever have. You have heard of this uh, Greek goddess who was in the sky, Akasha, and saw a common man who probably was as handsome as me. I mean, maybe like you would
Let's not.
make a correction like him. And then she saw and felt, I'm a celestial being, but Dr. Sharan is such a handsome man. And she came down, met, introductions done, and they kind of wanted to settle down with each other and live happily ever after. And whenever we say ever after, it never happens. So the man, because in our Puranas and epics, there's so many, it's replete with so many of the instances that when something good happens, the success gets to the head and you come back into your elements, and you do what will be the undoing of all the good. So this man went on to cheat with somebody, and the goddess realized that this guy is cheating. I am a celestial body and I am in love with this guy, but he is going with her. So she cursed him that you will die when you don't realize that you have not taken a breath. So your breathing becomes voluntary. So
Oh.
every single breath he had to realize, I have to breathe. You ask me a question, I will tell, I have to breathe, and then I answer.
My
So that
goodness.
is called as Ondine curse.
Correct, Undiagnosed curse. I know whether this story is made up or what, but anyway, we'll take it at face value.
Physiologically,
I agree.
this is an entity. There is a condition, congenital hypoventilation syndrome. Very interesting. One country, there were 2 kids
You have seen cases like this, huh?
Yes.
Oh.
So, but I don't take the credit for diagnosing it. Somebody else, one of my colleagues did it. But then the interesting part I'll tell you. In the West, as again, there's so much of cultural differences. In India, when do grown-ups, when do people take up to swimming? Is when they have crossed 18, 14, 15, or through the school, they get into swimming. In the West, they are born today and 1 month later they are in the pool. So there were these young kids just dumped into the swimming pool, and parents were all around, and there are specialized coaches for the newborns and younger ones. And they noticed some of the kids were doing underwater lap for a couple of minutes. And every time the coach would go down, bring them up, and they were like very happy. And again go down. They could spend underwater so much length of time, which was abnormal, unusual, unheard of, unused. That is when they realized that, okay, there is a mechanism in which the person is not taking the breath and is able to hold breath, which is an advantage if you are a underwater swimming specialist. So there are these bizarre kind of things, not easily picked up. But more easily picked up is sleep apnea patients who have what we call medically as alveolar hypoventilation, which means alveoli, air sac in the lung. Now that should give the message to the brain that, boss, this guy has taken a breath, I am stretching, the stretch is enough, can I breathe out? All this happens without our conscious knowledge. So what happens is in very obese individuals, most likely, the communication channel is cut. There is a global war and the communication lines are severed. So what happens is, not taken a breath, but the individual didn't react automatically. Now you keep building your carbon dioxide levels. So when we do a sleep study, we slap a transcutaneous carbon dioxide monitor, and
That
that
will
will
onto the skin.
onto the skin
Mm.
anywhere,
Mm.
and that will pick up that the carbon dioxide level is drifting up and up as the sleep deepens and deepens. And you pick up what we call as alveolar hypoventilation. And you do a ABG, they are sitting up very well, and without a primary lung problem, their carbon dioxide level is 70, 80 when it should be less than 45.
This is in sleep.
Even when they wake up, they can have alveolar hypoventilation.
Okay.
So congenital hypoventilation is predominantly seen in kids.
So now we have moved from how the brain is controlling sleep to the breathing to the apnea to the snoring, which is the upper airway problem. And I want you to talk about CPAP machines. A lot of people are advised CPAP machines. Many people don't want to put it. Hug bedwa, is it good? Is it not good? How does it work? So what's your advice to people? When should it be put? How should it be used?
Historically, sleep apnea, people realize that the airway is collapsing
Correct.
at the bend of the neck.
Mhm.
So the only treatment that people could think of in the earlier years was making a small hole tracheostomy and leave them on tracheostomy. But what is there? It takes away the entire quality of life. You can't speak, you can't have a decent life, you can't sing, you can't talk, and but you don't snore. So that was the treatment in the Pickwickian era and sleep apnea. But later in Australia, a gentleman called Collins felt, what if I splint the airway? Splinting the airway. So how do you splint? So he used a 5cc pump, kept
Ah.
it outside the house,
Ah.
brought the pipe, made a plaster of Paris mask, tied down the mask, and the air was going in continuously, creating a pressure. So it is positive end expiratory pressure, which is brought to the peak. So you can imagine, if the airway is collapsing, you have filled it with so much of air, it distends.
It opens up.
And then the airway wants to collapse, but the air doesn't allow the airway to collapse. So you are pneumatically
Keeping it open.
splinting the airway. Like how you splint a fracture, you are keeping the airway open.
The airway. Got it.
So that was the science of CPAP. CPAP basically meant continuous positive airway pressure.
Correct.
And you do a sleep study and you do a lab titration with a CPAP machine, where you progressively start from 5 centimeter, you go up till you can abolish the apnea episodes and manually fix a thing. Maybe similar thing times have evolved. You use a APAP, which is automated positive airway pressure device. It's got an algorithm.
So
and
it reads here and
it measures what is the encroachment of the airway, and then proportionally it will
how
increase
you
the
have to put
pressure.
something inside. How does it measure?
So the amount of air that is gone in versus air coming out is actually taken out.
Like an
In fact,
ETCO2 machine, Tara, something similar.
exactly.
Got it.
So during COVID times,
Mhm.
Mr. Anand, who was a NAL scientist, and a group of them actually, they all wanted to do, how the situation was. Nobody knew whether we would see the next day,
Correct.
next year, who would be
Correct.
alive, who would not be alive. It was a real classic doomsday kind of a thing. So I was a small part of the NAL to come up with an Indian individualized NIV machine called Swasthavayu.
Mm.
So I think the principle is very well known. So you just have to do a bit of engineering on top of it. You have any type of AVAPs, CPAP, APAP, the popular so-called BiPAP is a company. It's to be called as non-invasive ventilation, NIV. So all this, but the main purpose is keep the airway open, make the air move in and out. So that's the simple philosophy. And they are the preferred or the gold standard for treatment of sleep apnea.
Somebody who's snoring, you say up to 1 to 5 so-called apneas
0 to 5,
0 to 5 every
everybody
hour
could do it.
can have. So
If you
that's
do it,
physiological. Beyond that, that can be
yeah,
measured only in a sleep study.
sleep study.
Uh,
So 5 to 15 is called mild. So you may want to give them a trial of basically lifestyle changes, weight loss, and other sleep hygiene measures. 15 to 30 is moderate. So then you will have to look at other conditions. Do they have memory issues? Because sleep apnea, if untreated, will lead to cognitive dysfunction, memory, impotence, so many other aspects. Cardiac rhythm disorders. Even in people with an accessory network in the heart, you have cardiac surgeon has burned that or ablated the circuit, and but you don't treat the sleep apnea, that ablation is not 100% success. So all this probably you take it in stages. So if it is, even if it is 15 to 30, you may want to treat if there are other pressing factors. More than 30, you should treat
and all this is known with one sleep study.
one sleep
One
study.
study.
And then you may need to do either a home titration or a lab titration with this positive airway
Got
device.
it. Got it. Perfect. Perfect. So that's what he's saying. So it's not wrong or bad for whatever reasons happen. There are solutions that you can do to still keep your system going, but otherwise the outcomes are more disastrous than doing it. This is the song we just heard. You know, that English song both of us like. Every breath you take from police, every move you make, every bond you break, I'll be watching. It's like somebody on top watching everything, like God or whatever it is. So I think that's how it is. Somebody, because we are asleep, somebody has to watch us. I think the sleep study is doing that. Somebody who is watching us.
Watching,
Huh?
and everything is autopilot.
Do you also have a video camera in the sleep EEG?
Yeah, so sleep studies
Sleep
are
study,
4
sorry.
levels.
Uh,
Level 1 is it happens in the sleep lab with a video camera on. You are correlating with the stages of sleep and the movements that you capture on the camera, privacy respected. Level 2, no camera, but brain waves studied completely. And level 3 is where you do it at home, nobody monitors. Automatically you record everything, more of respiratory variables recorded, not much of brain waves to be recorded. Level 4 is you basically don't record anything, but give a small altimeter type of an object or an apnea link device, only measures pulse, saturation, and simple things. So that comes as level 4.
so how do you decide who needs 1, 2, 3, 4?
Right, very simple. I see a patient who gives some kind of a clue that he is having epilepsy during sleep, what we call as nocturnal frontal lobe epilepsy. I would say, please come in.
What is this? Can you explain what is nocturnal frontal lobe epilepsy exactly?
Exactly. I mean, you are a epilepsy surgeon, it's your domain. So you would know and you would advise every patient that sleep well. And if sleep is good,
Yes.
seizure control is
Correct.
assured.
Agreed.
However, there are few of those epilepsies which are predominantly seen during sleep. One of the theory is this could be brought on by rapid changes in CO2 levels.
Correct.
So, there is the entity of nocturnal frontal lobe, front portion of the brain, sending a dysynchronous or synchronous firing discharge, and they have epilepsy. Now they don't complain unless they have injury or tongue bite. So it may not get recognized, but they may kind of experience that night was very lousy, very
Correct.
traumatic,
Waking up
and
with body
almost
pain.
shoulder dislocation,
Correct.
all those kind of things. Then we do level 1. Or somebody is parasomnia. You need to capture the moment and see what exactly is happening. So you do level 1. Somebody has insomnia, but no other complicating features. Why do you want to look at any movement as such? You would do a level 2 and save them money. Level 3, we all are such a social animal that we will tend to sleep much better in our own bed, our
Correct.
own side of the bed also,
And our own pillow.
our own room, our own pillow, the
Absolutely.
same pullover, whatever mattress. So, in those kind of people, it would be a torture, self-defeating purpose. If you bring them to the sleep lab,
Agreed.
they're not going to sleep.
Correct.
So, you do respiratory variable at their home remotely. So, that is level 3. And level 4, the diagnosis is almost assured. You have heard the story, you have kind of got the diagnosis in the history itself, but you still do have to prove. So you go through the motions of proving that and save much more money for the patient. You do a level 4. So it's not an arbitrary thing, but it is
That's why
about how do you tailor make.
Correct. You triage the patient, and based on that, you get. Okay, Satya. Saturation probe. Oximeter. Oxygen saturation. I don't think most of the population had heard these 3 words before the damn COVID came in March. Karadala, I don't think anybody had a clue. I mean, I don't think people spoke anything except this 24/7. Some of them were paranoid. Some of them were upstairs problem. Many were downstairs problem. And I knew as a frontline worker in probably the best corporate hospital, MHB, you are like I can't say a man in the hot seat, but not an enviable position to be in. But I know the kind of work you and your team did during COVID. So, can you just take us through the simple thing of saturation? So, you're moving down to the lungs and everything else. Obviously, I would like you to touch on asthma or wheezing, not so much, but whatever. But just tell about this whole journey in COVID, and I'll keep asking questions in between.
So, oxygen is when we breathe in air, it has got the air around us, which of course we can't see, and good that we can't see. So, that is about 21% of oxygen. Now, suppose we were sitting on the top of Himalayas, the oxygen level would have been less than 16%. So, at 20,000 feet, it drops down. So, when we take the air in, the lung, which is like a balloon, millions of balloons, so well engineered. On the outer side of the balloon is the blood flowing, inner side is whatever breathe we take in. So, the blood has less oxygen. So, the oxygen from the air sac will move in. Carbon dioxide is more, it moves. It's a simple thing that
Gas
higher
exchange.
concentration to lower concentration.
The gas exchange.
And that is the life sustaining thing.
Correct.
Here, what is important is air is abundant, but the balloon has to be good. The force which makes the balloon needs to be good. Let us say we call the lung as bellows. They have to be good. The muscles that help with breathing have to be good. And also, let us say you give complete independence to the chest wall and lung. The natural tendency of lung is to collapse towards the center. The natural tendency of the chest wall is to fly away.
Correct.
So they are going in the opposite direction.
Correct.
So at a point prevalence, the pressures are balanced out, and that is what we call as FRC.
What's FRC?
Functional residual capacity. So what I am trying to say is that ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅವ್ನು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಉಸಿರಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಇವನೇನೋ ಉಸಿರೇ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ತೊಗೊಳಲ್ಲ. That is a very simple way of looking at. Just
simplistic way.
imagine the mechanics and engineering behind the breathing.
24/7 with 365.
So,
Amazing.
I think this is what we call as the bellow or lung movement ventilation anta.
Correct.
Medically we call it.
Correct.
Now that is one set of things. Now, do you know that whales can smell even 4 kilometers away, thousands of kilometers away?
No.
Whales and sharks.
No.
I always wondered, what if the same shark which can smell, say, 1000 kilometer away, if it has asthma, it will be perpetually in the problem. Wherever it swims, it will start wheezing and asking, please give inhaler, throw it into the water.
I never thought about that.
I do. So that brings me to saying, what is asthma? Unfortunately, in our country, we for years have been attaching stigma to many of the medical problems.
Correct.
To define asthma in very simple words, you have immune cells in your lung. Now they are trained to recognize the villain. Sometimes, due to genetic issue, they kind of transform and recognize everybody as villain. So whether it is Durandar 2 ತರ ಆಗಿದೆ.
ಆ post that is liar.
ಹಾ.
Nobody knows who's who.
So whether it is flowers, pollen, dust, bedspread, dust mite, house mite, you name it, perfume. So you may buy a very costly perfume and you may say,
Even
"Wow,
agarbatti."
fantastic. You know, I paid $5,000 ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಿನ್ ಲೆಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ. ನನ್ನ ಲೆಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ it could be
ಆಯ್ತಪ್ಪ.
just a simple ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು
$10,000.
ಕಲರ್ ವಾಟರಿಂಗ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು. So now that will be accepted as a very good perfume. But then an asthmatic, the same perfume the immune system is sensing to be villain number 1.
Correct.
So it is throwing a cascade of chemicals which will make the airway muscles to go into spasm, the glands in the lung to become very fierce, and it is kind of building up a lot of secretion. That is what we call as asthma. In asthma, mind you, that anybody who has asthma could be fantastic, ready to run a marathon one day, next day he or she is having a wheezing attack and can't move 10 steps. So there are attack free intervals and things like that. And the counterpart of it, take it as a model, this is a highly inflammatory disease, a different type of inflammation when you are exposed to biomass, fossil fuel, cigarette smoking, industrial dust, metal, sand, mining, vagera vagera, sericulture. Then you end up getting what is known as chronic obstructive airway disease or COPD, where the model of the disease appears the same. In asthma, there is reversibility. COPD, there is no reversibility. In COPD, a different type of corpse comes into does the damage, called neutrophil. In asthma, it is the eosinophil, a different sophisticated police who can't tolerate anybody. So that is the difference.
I didn't know that you can get a COPD without having an asthma episode. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, they both are to be different.
Two different things.
But an asthma not well treated will later progress to COPD.
Huh.
Not vice versa.
Not vice versa. Oh, I didn't know this. Okay.
So you have a spectrum of diseases that affect the airway or breathing tubes. Asthma, COPD, allergic bronchitis, all these things. Now, in between the balloon, there is supporting structures. For this interview to happen, madam is the supporting structure. Likewise, there is what we call as interstitium, the brick layer that supports holding the balloons, blood vessels, all that. Let us say the interstitium starts becoming thick for no reason.
For no reason.
For no reason, or maybe reason due to exposure to asbestos, industrial smoking, any of the things, radiation, all this. The stretch of the lung is reduced and the thickness between the balloon and the blood vessel wall increases. So no matter how much oxygen I take, that can't
Exchange doesn't happen.
exchange. So therefore we call that as interstitial lung diseases.
ILD.
Now the air sacs are good, breathing tubes are good, supporting structure interstitium is good. But what about the blood flow? The heart is sending blood into the lung with one purpose. Yaar, jaake clean karo. Clean this blood and send it back in the pure form. Now, if there are problems with the blood flow within the lung, you call it as pulmonary vascular diseases. So, you have basically 4 different facets of diseases, and along with that, there are diseases of supporting structures. I am the main singer, I am okay, but my pakkavadya or the percussionist is not good. My diaphragm paralysis may be there, it is not allowing me to breathe. Good lung, but what is the use? The fellow doesn't help you. So these are just a overview
Got it.
to understand with simplicity
Very well explained. Very well explained.
of pulmonary problems that you see. Some are very common, say asthma becoming more common. And again, maybe you will label me as evolutionary medicine specialist.
Yakapa.
ಯಾಕೆಂದ್ರೆ again you need to look at asthma. Probably Homo sapien type, they didn't have much of asthma, or historical evidence excavation doesn't point out. So when man started becoming more and more refined and started building house and room like this fabulous room, and you started inviting certain insects which were outside, happily in the wild you brought them in because you have abundance of food in the house. So you brought cockroaches, the outer layer or the exoskeleton, the outside skeleton that is there on the cockroach liberates a chemical called chitin or chitinases.
Correct.
And that is a strong stimulant. So asthma, if you see, probably was less in the past, but over years with urbanization and we are pet centered, we are very social, upward and mobile. So we have brought diseases in greater proportion.
So, anyway, I don't want to get into asthma treatment and all of that. So, I think you gave a good overview of that. So, of all this that you spoke about, in COVID, when we had that, was all of these affected in COVID for different patients, one patient, or how can you put COVID into perspective and give that much of? I think
I
that may.
would talk on COVID for hours and hours, but I think what got affected during COVID was humanity in the first place. In my words, humanity lived 1,000 birth during COVID. It also had 1,000 deaths.
That's agreed.
There
Depending
were
on which side.
instances where people were very altruistic, came out of the house, supplied food to
Correct.
homeless,
Correct.
arranged for shelter. There were exemplary act of taking the dead and burying them.
Correct.
So amazing aspect of
amazing.
humanity.
I agree.
There were also the death of humanity where some of the residential welfare buildings, the secretary or the president of the society goes and locks up an inmate who called up just as a courtesy, I've got COVID, test result came through, that put a lock on the outside door, discrimination.
ಹೌದು ಒಂಥರ
And what happened was the vice chancellor of Rooks called me and said, you were abroad, maybe you could put together an educational tool about COVID. And we did it pro bono, without any remuneration or expectation of the same. We went around to all medical colleges, some of the PHCs and things like that. The governments also played their role. Vaccination was not heard of. All we were looking is, it was a cardiac lung centered pathology when it was on Wuhan. Lung was the target organ.
Correct.
The disease moved from Wuhan to Italy. Then we realized it is the heart that is getting hit.
Correct.
Then by the time it reached the shores of America, we realized that, yeah, chodo heart and lung ko, it is affecting clots and there are blood clots. So you can see the evolution of
Morphing.
that.
It was morphing.
But two things: the discrimination should not have been there. I was in one part of the Bangalore, and there I realized that if I every day treat COVID patients and go home, my kids will not have other kids come in to play.
Correct.
So I had to move out into a hotel, and
Imagine.
towards the peak of COVID, I had already taken sannyasa for
6 months,
months.
huh?
6 months I
My
stayed away,
goodness, crazy.
and
Imagine the sacrifice, staying away from family.
I wouldn't say sacrifice. Maybe it's all destiny. We were forced to do that by the act of humanity, and the governments also have reciprocated, given me awards, and so whatever we never. I never knew I would survive COVID because I was treating 140 patients a day.
My goodness.
And in absentia or remotely, we were treating a group of intensive care specialists under the government agencies. We were doing critical care rounds remotely
Amazing.
with almost every district of
Oh, yeah?
Karnataka, and that was completely voluntary. And we had to screen. So I would have seen about 25,000 patients, and I take it that I would never use the word sacrifice. I take it as privilege and destiny. I was privileged enough to take care of these people, very rewarding. We had the lowest possible mortality. If the US mortality was around 2.4 to 3.6, Manipal had mortality of 0.8. Humongously different mortality. But why should
And did
we?
that translate to all those people that you were doing calls for? Did that also help to keep mortality down?
We don't know.
You don't know.
It did definitely help them.
It would have helped for sure.
And we had to invest 4 hours in a day apart from this. So the staying in the hotel was very helpful because I would reach at 11:30, and 6 o'clock 4 o'clock I would wake up, have some fruits, and you are in the scrubs for at least 12 hours, and you would have kind of
In
become
and out of PPEs and everything.
yeah. So but
Crazy.
it became a walk of life. I mean, there was no end to that. Wave after wave, second
Correct.
wave was
Correct.
devastating.
Devastating.
And we always look at, oh, I served 25,000, but you feel when you couldn't do much when you were losing patients.
I agree. I think we have never felt so helpless and hopeless ever, I think, in a
Exactly.
in Alva.
But then we do refuse to learn.
What do you say?
Is this the first pandemic that we had?
No.
No. Centuries we have had.
Correct.
1916,
Cholera, ugly,
Spanish flu, Russian flu, swine flu, 2009 onwards. So these are few things we can
we could
recap
have, yeah.
with a definite historical, documentation. But even before that, there were a number of
Correct. Plague and everything.
plague and other things. So pandemics do come as if they are on a biological clock or a rhythm, circadian rhythm. They come once in 80 to 100 years. And we always have to stay one step ahead. We don't have to be reactionary, but we have to be over and above. In one particular country where I worked, they had this maternity ward, which the hospital maternity block moved into women's and children's hospital. So this block was kept for this disaster purpose. They had full-fledged beds.
Even before, when everything was normal.
Yes. And it was only maintained. It was never kept operational, but ready to go operational within days or hours. So, I mean, for our economy, and I refuse to buy that India is a developing country. I always proudly say India is very developed. Looking back into
COVID,
our
no?
childhood,
Okay.
we definitely see ocean of change. People are by and large
True. Agreed.
good and affordable, knowledgeable.
And
How
good
many people
access.
knew what is HbA1c 15 years ago? Common man. Now they will know. Doctor, 3 ತಿಂಗಳದು 9.8 ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ. They will. So that awareness, everything is coming through,
Very fast.
and Indians are intelligent and they are rich, in my view. The only man left standing is me on the outside. Yes.
Yes, Satya, we shall accept that and we shall indoctrinate you. I'll upgrade your software very quickly. Reboot your brain. That's what I'm going to do at the end of this procedure. Anyway, you told me some story of a family, and in COVID time. So
Oh,
many.
many tragedies,
I
Sharan.
know.
But one in particular shook me.
Mm,
We are trained professionals.
correct.
We are trained to keep and bury our emotion and not show sympathy but only show empathy and become a part of patient's journey. But this was very bizarre. Elderly man brought his son, admitted, and the son was very, very bad. The father knew. The elderly man wife, that is the boy's mother, was admitted in a different corporate hospital
With COVID.
with COVID. So the son brought in with COVID. The father was walking out, and towards the emergency, as he was walking out, he dropped dead.
Oh, yeah.
We don't even have access to where the mother is admitted. The son is really not doing well, extremely sick. 2 hours later, I got the information that somehow police or contacts, they said the mother is no more. The father is gone in front of our eyes. He was able to support the son and bring him in, but the exposure to the virus was so much. He died, and the son died. And
Son
it
also died.
leaves you with a philosophical bent of mind at that point of time. Everybody is temporary here. And when we look at people's emotion, at times we see this is mine, this
Asti.
Maserati is mine,
With Asti.
that is mine, this is mine.
People
But
kill for that.
then,
Fight for
yeah,
that.
so we don't realize that the whole universe is like a lodge. You come in,
Correct.
you are given a room, you check into the room, you have a task to do, and after that, when you think you are checking out, it happens even without you knowing.
Correct. Correct.
So, I mean, COVID was a master class
Allah, level up.
in teaching people compassion, care, taking care of health, importance of vaccinations, importance of medicine. As you said, importance in they probably nobody had worried about oxygen saturation. They started learning that.
Correct.
People didn't know what is awake proning. Some highly evolved individuals already knew without even getting COVID how to do awake proning to increase the oxygen naturally. So it was a moment of reckoning and awakening.
I can imagine. No, I know because being in the hot seat, and what's amazing, I think God protected you. You said you never got COVID yourself in spite of seeing 140 patients a day. I think it's just
Yeah,
destiny.
so it once so happened that I went for rounds and we have 11 floors in Manipal.
Correct.
So 140 patients every single day. So I was going from 11th floor down. When I reached the 5th floor, every bed is a COVID bed.
Mm.
And Manipal really truly opened up its heart and gave all the
I know.
beds.
I know.
So while going through, we used to wear a double layer mask in those times. N95 not available during the first wave. So it so happened that due to irritation, I have pushed one portion of the mask up, one is down. And I have seen really sick patients on that particular day. Then I realized that unfortunately, I have spent few hours in the COVID ward without the mask.
Mm.
Yet the virus thought of me as a despicable you and never came to me. Not one instance, many instances. There was a particular surgeon trying to operate a small bowel obstruction in a person who had one COVID test negative.
Mm.
Second test was awaited, but it was a surgical emergency. While they were operating, there was aspiration. So the content of the intestine, which were overloaded, got into the lung. So I had to rush in. Because I knew patient is COVID negative, I did a bronchoscopy, took out all the paratas and whatever food material from the lung, cleaned the lung. only to realize next minute
It was
because you
positive,
have to react in an emergency. So I
huh?
went with a simple mask and did the procedure. Realized that patient turned out to be COVID positive.
My
So
goodness.
there were so many instances, but luckily, it is probably
Divine.
people wishing me
Yeah,
well
I think so.
and their blessing plus the divine
Yes, I think
grace
so. I think so.
that I never picked
I
up.
think so. Because
But
the
it's
kind
an
of service,
experience
yes, I know.
not to be forgotten.
I
And
agree. I agree. No, I know because I remember we used to have 35 ambulances waiting outside with, on ventilator, no bed inside. It is such a struggle. It is really desperate. And you were telling one guy, he was buying oxygen. That's when he made a statement. I think you should make that, tell us that story.
exactly, the thing is, it has found its way in social media also in this particular instance. Patient was advised oxygen
Mm.
and he asked the cost of concentrator and other things and he started crying. So the reason for his cry was that here everything, I mean, no altruistic person can prepare a oxygen concentrator, do a mass production and give it free. But philosophically, when you look, God lets you take millions and billions of liters of oxygen and you don't pay a
Correct.
single pie for it.
Correct.
So that if it were to be charged,
Charged. Imagine.
nobody would have been alive.
Correct.
So there is oxygen is such a precious gas and an agent that sustains life, and the value of that was known during
Correct.
COVID.
Correct. Absolutely. That's what everybody, and it was such a democratizing disease. It didn't bother male, female, rich, poor,
Rich, poor,
nothing, and
how powerful you
it
are.
made no difference at the end of the day. And that was, I think, an amazing thing. So thank you very much for what you have done during COVID. We were not frontline, though we did our own little bit of work at the back with all these other patients, but definitely people like
As
you
I
and all.
said, I'll take it as a privilege,
Agreed.
occasion to serve
Yes, and all the
and give back
pulmonologists
something for what the universe has
has
given
given you.
to
I
us.
think, yeah, I agree with you completely. So from COVID, I think we'll go to what you think. Tuberculosis was one thing that you made a very interesting statement, connecting it to the future of healthcare, what is happening and things like that. You made a statement on that and how. So if you before we go to future of healthcare, how do you make affordable healthcare? You're sitting in the most corporatized hospital.
Absolutely. My passion is that having seen healthcare setups across the globe, having worked in at least 2, 3 continents, my burning desire is that public healthcare system, if you look at, say, US, UK, Australia, not Australia, Australia still has a good public healthcare system.
UK,
UK
Canada.
and Canada and US.
Mm.
Public healthcare system did not and does not survive or thrive so well. So they have to piggyback on insurance sector a lot because cost of healthcare is quite huge. One day in a particular country, I was about to admit a patient and I was told there is no bed. This is a public hospital. So, but there are empty beds. So I thought, I thought like an Indian. Arey yaar, there is an empty bed. Why do we deny it to the patient? But then I understood to make an empty bed with cot and bed functional, how many people do you need? You need to pay for at least 4 to 5 nurses on a particular shift. Then you need the helping staff, the cleaning staff, the logistics,
Doctors.
doctor, everybody. So when you look at that, the cost in a public healthcare is no less than, it's not peanuts.
Correct.
I may say, I've paid my tax, I deserve. But then in Colorado, one of the health economists looked at a rare disease, genetic disease. You have a excellent cure you have found, which costs about 16 million. So this man did a study and said, okay, if you give 16 million, yes, you are saving the affected child. But imagine what you can do with that 16 million. You could save 100 people with kidney disorder or 200,000 people with a lung problem. So the question comes to equitable distribution of healthcare resources. And with that comes the question that public healthcare system as it stands in the abroad countries, it has not been a highly successful model. So my passion in our country is that we should have a 3-tier system. Say you have a hospital. Government has an idea that for a person coming with subdural hematoma, this much amount is spent. So there is a PPM, public private mix model, whereas government pays you a base rate for managing any patient because he or she is citizen of the country. Now the person also happens to have insurance, so the insurance will pay the second slot,
The extra slot.
the extra slot, or
Whatever.
because he is paid for the insurance, so they will pay for his service. So you have 2 slabs of payment. There is a third slab. You may have a wonderful, I'm sure you have a big team with you, but I am your patient and I don't want anyone to operate on me. I want only Sharan to operate on me. So I will pay you gap money. So then, if you look at the whole thing, government did not have to pay the entire money. Insurance did not have to lose everything and pay this thing. Both of them part paid. Me as a patient, based on my like and dislike, my wants and
Desires.
preferences, I have paid a small token.
Mm.
So my pocket is not pinched, nor the public fund, nor the insurance. So it's a very difficult model, but there are countries that do follow
Do
this.
this,
Australia does follow
Mhm.
this, and that is called Medicare, Medicaid programs. I think this is a clarion call for powers that be to explore and see,
I think so.
can we work out something here so that we take money out of care.
Mm.
So if you are looking at treatment recovery, lack of money or abundance of money should not influence the
Correct.
output or outcome.
Correct. So you are saying one cannot exist without the other. The private has to be there, the public has to be there,
And the insurance also
has to
has
be there,
to
and there should
play
be
in.
a very smart intermix.
Then this integration will ensure everybody spends less, the best care is obtained, and healthcare, there is a uniform structure.
So nobody is denied.
Exactly.
Nobody is denied. At least the basics, whatever
And
you.
we don't want to end up in the way some of the Western countries have ended up with their healthcare.
I know it's a mess. So tragically, it's understanding that. I agree. So we should not blindly ape them. And I think as Indians, we have this unique thing of jugadifying everything, like the UPI, for example. We should be able to, like you said, somebody has to really take it on a war footing to make that happen.
Who better than you? You seem to be very well politically connected, very popular
You I think are
neurosurgeon
more
in the
connected
state.
than me.
Eh?
You are more connected than me.
So I think
Both of us together should do it. I think.
if by divine grace the powers be political setup in the country hears this kind of ideas, they should take it up and see if it is
Absolutely.
workable model, or
In
can we
between,
do
yeah.
even better than our ideas.
I mean, somewhere
So,
we are each
yeah.
of us are proposing something based on our understanding, wisdom, or whatever it is at the end of the day. I think that will make it happen. So, where do you see? See, one thing I saw with COVID was the acceptance of telemedicine. Those things really moved quite significantly, both in otherwise, how difficult it was to do a telemedicine call. So, where do you think that with the technology coming in, kicking in parallelly, where do you think healthcare is moving in the
Number
future?
one, it has nothing to do with technology.
Really?
Yep. So in a country,
Mm.
Neurosurgeons are a rare breed. In some of the Western countries, there was this big city where there is only 3 neurosurgeons in the city.
Mm.
It so happens that only one is on call.
Mm.
And when you are not on call, you are never disturbed. In the West, it's different in India. So as a rule, you are always called. And so what happened was, this neurosurgeon received a call saying this particular patient is in this particular county hospital. He's got a severe backache and probably radiologically, spine fracture, whatever, whatever. So the neurosurgeon said, look, it will take time for me to come there. It could take a week before I come and see. Why don't you apply traction?
Mm.
And as the story unfolds, the patient in question had a neurological complication,
Mm. Post traction.
post traction.
Mm.
So the patient sued the doctor, neurosurgeon, saying that you advised and that created complication. Neurosurgeon said, I have not seen you. I have not even met you. I have not taken consent from you. But the judges ruled that if you had listened to everything,
Mm.
back pain, leg, okay, okay, I will see you in reasonable length of time, but I cannot see you now.
Mm.
And I cannot advise you anything. There is no liability. But you advised a treatment. So this was the quote or reference
Mm.
which most countries took up. And telemedicine was never considered to be even legitimate or legit or legal.
Mm. Correct.
So COVID, I used to talk to patients in Kolar, Dharmapuri, Hindupur, across the state, across the country, because there was Pandemic Diseases Act, Epidemic Diseases Act, and other regulations which made it, and telemedicine was given a legal color.
Correct.
But to me, telemedicine is one way to ensure, let us say we have an elderly person in the house.
Mm.
To take him or her to the hospital, I have to apply leave in my hospital. So there are so many patients who will be inconvenienced because I couldn't turn up. On top of it, we will be adding on to the Bangalore traffic ooze. So with all that, you take them and they are exhausted in this scorching heat.
Correct. Correct.
So when you look at all this, isn't telemedicine at least a tool to kind of telephonically triage,
I
look
think
at the
so.
reports and do it? So it has its place, but there should be a self-imposed restraint by practitioners and providers, that you should have seen the patient at least once
I was just going to say that. I agree.
and you should know the patient well. And if you find something amiss, by experience, you will, according to me, 99% of the diagnosis is made by history.
Correct.
The remaining 1% is your stethoscope or knee hammer in your case, and a MRI CT in your case, and a X-ray in my case. So the significant contribution is by history.
Correct.
Accepting that, and that fact that you know the patient, you can kind of provide telemedicine and save so much of problem for this thing,
At multiple levels.
multiple level.
Agreed.
So, but then there are drawbacks with the telemedicine. I have had this experience.
Mm-hmm. Like what?
The son will log in.
Mm.
He will say, I am not the only decision maker.
Mm.
So I'll have 4 people logging into one
Correct.
connection.
Correct.
And then finally, they are the ones interested in asking question. I don't get a FaceTime with the patient at all. So those are clear no. You should have a good discussion with the patient and understand the issues. And if you have any doubts, say bring to emergency.
Correct.
Rather than
Or
saying,
go to a local doctor. Go to somebody.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, wherever emergency.
Somebody has to
anyway.
see him. Somebody has to see him
Yeah,
physically.
so those kind of things, it will even work as an excellent triage. In fact, during COVID, there is a wonderful gentleman, I won't name him. He always claimed that there is no COVID. COVID is a myth. Virus illa ರೀ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. And his
Who is this
colleagues,
Punyatma?
is nice man, very nice man. And I wasn't offended, honestly. I mean, when moon landing is called as fake, then you can call anything as a
Correct.
fake. So this man, his colleagues called and said he's not looking good at all. We saw him on WhatsApp video. Can you please do a video consultation immediately? Drop off the hat. I could see signs of death on the face.
Hmm.
And I told, no point in talking now. I am sending an ambulance. But on the parallel, if you know a hospital nearby, please call an ambulance and don't go by car or anything. You know, the saturation was looking 60%. And it did take long time to recover, 10-12 days. But that was a very big disaster averted by telemedicine. So I think it's a fantastic tool, but use it right
Correct.
is what I would say.
Eventually, everything has to be used appropriately, in moderation and appropriate thing. I think so. I do the same thing because I tell them we write investigations. I said for the sending the investigation we can speak on the phone because others coming all the way just for the outdoor time waste. So much of extra money they spend. I think that's the right thing that you say. Or if the first consult is from an outside place, you say anyway with what I know, this is what it is. But send a video, but yet you should come back and see what's. I think it's a fair process. I think Satya, we had a fantastic conversation. All good things have to come to an end.
Privilege is mine. I can proudly say my eyes have been opened. Even the third eye is opened. Thank you.
The pineal gland.
And,
no, but you are the one who educated us. How can your eyes open, you tell me? Huh?
Just by talking to you, mate. Now, I think coming on to Sharan Srinivasan's show itself is a privilege, it's a medal and an achievement. So I'm very happy. I thank all the viewers who will or who may get bored with the whatever I have spoken. Thanks.
So I'll tell you how many people got bored with you when we get the information. But Satya, I think it was a fantastic conversation. I think the sleep was an eye-opener. Paradoxically, it was an eye-opener. How many people will lose their sleep because understanding sleep problems is the question right now.
Sleep is supposed to be eye closer.
I think I held that. That's what I said. Paradox is going to be like that. So guys, before we close, don't forget the rules. Subscribe to the channel, the YouTube, Instagram, and the Facebook. Subscribe, make your comments, like, share, do everything that needs to be done. We have Rebooting the Brain book. It's right behind me. It's available on Amazon. You have a Kindle edition. Please buy it and look at it. It gives a lot of information on neurological issues. We have a second book which is not yet on Amazon but available at our clinic. It's called Neuro Justice for those who had this brain or spinal cord injuries and looking at things like that, whether it's an advocate or anybody else, that's what you can do. But for now, signing off from the Rebooting the Brain studio with Dr. Satyanarayana Mysore, the superstar of COVID. And thank you for the eye-opening conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, Satya, as a part of a customary thing at our studio, we give a copy of the book Rebooting the Brain to every guest of ours. This is your copy.
Honored, buddy, and knowing that you have written this so well, I think the interview and everything becomes much more privileged from my side. And it is always heartening when people write a book, not just a medical book. When they include patients and caregivers,
Correct.
It takes it to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you so much.